It isn't a conspiracy, it's a controversy. Brown dwarfs were discovered too late. In 1796, the idea of the planets and the stars forming at the same time was accepted. It was called the nebula hypothesis, and we still have it today, like over 200 years later. And what happened here is that instead of discarding the nebula hypothesis when the island universe hypothesis came up, and we discovered that galaxies weren't forming solar systems, that they were entire, like, billions of solar systems in of itself, they never really got rid of the nebula hypothesis. They just kept it. And then we kept the nebula hypothesis, and then this standard solar model came out when Hans Bethe wrote his Energy Production in Stars paper in 1939. So there we have it. We had how planets formed, and then we had how stars were as old as planets. So naturally, the conclusion of stars cooling, shrinking, and dying and becoming what are called planets was never there. It couldn't have been there, because planets are formed in the nebula hypothesis and stars are fusion reactors. Brown dwarfs were discovered in 1994, a whole 55 years after Hans Bethe wrote his Energy Production in Stars paper, and also 198 years after Laplace wrote his protoplanetary disk nebular gas collapse theory on how the solar system formed. They were just discovered too late. Instead of going really, really big, the big stars, all the way down, they stop at a certain point where they no longer shine, and then they call these, the really small ones that don't shine, the planets. These are the planets. Well, not exactly the planets in our solar system, but... And the brown dwarfs, the objects that could connect stars to planets in a long evolutionary sequence that actually is, coherent, it was never considered. So instead of considering it, now we have astronomers placing the ages of brown dwarfs as being really, 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 really young, because they're failed stars. So what we have here is ideas that are being spawned. They're trying to take the ideas and make them congruent to previous ideas in the past. And what that's doing is just making a mess of everything. Instead of taking the observations and trying to put them into a coherent picture, they would rather take the observations and force the past to be correct. And that's just not good science.